Mr. Robinson, can you hear me? Mr. Robinson, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Robinson? He says he can't hear us and we can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Now it's working.
Okay.
I was just trying to call you on your phone. I knew that we couldn't hear you and you couldn't hear us. Is your telephone number still the one that ends in 8935?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so that's not even good. Mr. Robinson, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski. I'm at the 63rd District Court to talk to you today about your charge, which originally started out as an OWI second, driving suspended second. The prosecutor indicated that if you decided, and it has to be you, to plead to the OWI first, they'd drop the OWI second and they'd drop the driving suspended second. Was that your understanding?
Yes, ma'am.
So if you go forward, the decision that you make, it has to be yours, Mr. Robinson. You can plead guilty or not guilty. You can have a trial in front of a judge or a jury. You can have an attorney represent you. You're on your own. It's just you and me talking to each other, so you don't have a lawyer. And if you go forward on this case today, you won't have a lawyer. It's just you and me talking to each other. Then you give up your right to have an attorney. If you plead guilty, you give up your rights to have a trial. Like we don't have a trial if you plead guilty. You give up the rights, including bringing in witnesses, cross-examining witnesses, taking the stand yourself, being a witness if you wanted to. If you chose not to, your silence cannot be held against you. You have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Right now, Mr. Robinson, are you on probation or parole anywhere?
No, ma'am.
Do you have cases that are pending out of any other courts that you're dealing with?
No, ma'am.
If there was something you didn't agree with or something you wanted to appeal, you're given 21 days from the date of sentencing to appeal a case to the higher court. Do you understand that? So if there was something you didn't agree with, yeah, if there was something you didn't agree with, you have 3 weeks to appeal to circuit court to have them review it. It doesn't mean you'd automatically succeed. It just means you'd be able to have them review it on appeal. Do you understand?
Yes.
So if we go back in time to the date of this incident when you got arrested, and I don't know the facts at all, so I don't know if you went to jail, if you went to the hospital, I don't know what happened. April 10, so we're talking not exactly, but almost 6 months ago. The charge of operating while intoxicated is a misdemeanor, up to 93 days in jail, up to $500 fine, 6 points on your license if you pled guilty or were convicted. You'd have to go through a screening and alcohol assessment, which you already did at North Kent Guidance and Testing Services. And the Secretary of State can step in. They can take your license away on an alcohol-related driving offense, they look at your master driving record. So they can take your license away, suspend it, restrict it, or revoke it. Do you have any questions about any of that, Mr. Robinson?
No, ma'am.
And if the one out of Lake County up north is on your record, the Secretary of State will know about that charge. You know, that means they might take your license away longer. Do you get it?
Yes, ma'am.
So if we go back in time to April 10, Cone Street, right near your house, in Cedar Springs, Nelson Township, how do you want to plead to the misdemeanor charge called operating while intoxicated first offense?
Guilty, ma'am.
Do you remember bits and pieces of the whole incident?
Yes, I do.
Were you driving a vehicle at one point on that date?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you driving to your home or away from your home?
To home.
When you were driving to your home, what time was it? Just ballpark.
I'd say roughly afternoon, around two, in between 2 and 4.
Okay, so not dinner time, but past lunch, 2 to 4.
Yep.
Were you by yourself or you were with anyone else?
I was with my girlfriend.
An adult person sitting in the passenger seat with you?
Yes.
You were the driver of a car you're familiar with?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it a car you own?
At the moment, yes. I was in this process of selling.
Okay.
Had for sale.
What kind of vehicle are we talking about?
A little Honda, little two-door
Okay,
Honda.
4-door?
Two-door.
2-door sedan type?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hatchback.
If it's between 2 and 4 in the afternoon and the police come upon you, why are the police involved? Is it a traffic stop?
No, I heard what they told me. Somebody ended up calling because it had a loud exhaust on.
Somebody called the police because they thought you had some kind of defective equipment, and the next thing you know, the police are stopping you.
Yeah, they actually were at my house when I went pulling in.
So you're pulling in your driveway and they're pulling up behind you?
No, they were already sitting there.
They were waiting for you when you pulled in your driveway?
Yes, ma'am.
And then they asked to talk to you?
Yes, ma'am.
They asked you for your identification and who you were, driver's license or paperwork on your car?
Yes, ma'am. And I told them that I just bought it and all I have is a title and I'm in the process of selling it.
Okay. Did they ask you about whether you'd been drinking or using any kind of drugs?
Yes, they must have smelled it on me.
And they could smell alcohol because you had been somewhere, I'm guessing lunchtime, but I don't know. When were you drinking?
At home.
And
That was on Saturday where I do yard work
Yeah.
and clean up and
so when you
everything,
left
and
your home and your girlfriend's with you, where are you going?
not even a quarter mile around the corner to my aunt's house.
Yeah, but what for?
She wanted to look at the car.
Oh, so to perhaps buy it?
Yes.
So you drive after you've been at your house drinking what kind of alcohol?
Beer.
Do you know how many beers you would have had?
At that point in time, I'd say around 4 or 5.
Had your girlfriend had any?
She's had a couple, yes.
How was it that you decided to be the driver?
It was just that way. I don't know.
Okay.
It just
No
happened
real
that way.
talk, no real talk about it. You just drove.
Yes.
And you drove home from your aunt's as well, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And when the police asked you to do some tests, did you take a breathalyzer right at the scene?
No, ma'am.
Were you nervous about taking it, so you chose to say no?
Yes.
Nervous to the point that you thought this might not be good because I know I had 5 beers. True?
Yes,
Well, I
ma'am.
appreciate your honesty, Mr. Robinson. Were you taken into custody
Yes, Your Honor.
and the car was left right at your house?
Yes, Your Honor.
And when you went to the jail, did you take a blood test where they stick a needle in your arm and get your blood out?
Yes, I actually got 2 types of shots when I was in there.
Okay. Have you since
drew
found
blood,
out?
and then they tested me for something.
Yep. Have you since found out, when you've looked at this case, what the blood test results showed?
It 0.08.
Uh-huh. 0.08 or above is the illegal number. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Now, they said they gave you a preliminary breath test, which was a 0.15, and then when they transported you down to the Kent County Jail, they did actually take blood from your arm,
Yes, Your Honor.
and then they tested it later, and you remember the result being a 0.08.
It says it right here on my paperwork also.
Uh-huh. And what does it say?
It says right at the top, OWI second 0.08.
Yeah. The way that reads is that's the complaint, which originally charged you with a second offense, drunk driving, which means having an alcohol content of 0.08 grams or more per 100 milliliters of blood. That's going to read that way in everybody's case that has this type of charge. That doesn't report exactly what your blood test result was. So I'm looking for
Okay,
whether
I
we have,
understand now.
I'm looking for whether we have a copy of the blood test report. We definitely have the preliminary breath test that shows a 0.15, and it would have to be 0.08 and above for them to charge you criminally. So when I'm looking at this, it was right at the jail that you had the blood drawn, wasn't it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So when I'm looking through the North Kent guidance report, they're saying that you'd been at your house all day doing yard work. You were drinking Budweiser beer. You estimated you had around 8 beers, starting at around 2 in the afternoon until about 7 at night. It was around 7 at night when you drove the car around to your aunt's house because she was interested in buying it. Mr. Robinson explained when he came back home, the police were in his driveway. Someone had complained about the loudness of the car. He refused a breathalyzer test. He was taken to jail and given a blood test. Do you remember them actually sticking a needle in your arm?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
I got 2 of them.
Yep, they did it twice. Okay, I'm not doubting that. They say you have 2 kids,
no,
both
one
boys, 4 and
off by
7
my
years old.
elbow, and then they did.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
They took blood out of by my elbow, and then they did something on my other top.
Yep, okay. Do you acknowledge that the blood test that came back did show that you were over the legal limit?
I never got to see anything.
You never got to see what the
Only
test
thing I
result
got to
was?
read. No, only thing I got to see was the paperwork from the court system here that I
Okay.
got. That's why I took it as 0.08.
I'm going to try to get the copy of the blood test and take this plea conditionally upon the fact that the blood test is over the legal limit. If I find out that the blood test wasn't, then I'll readdress this case and won't take the plea. But if we make the assumption that the blood test you had showed you were 0.08 or above, that would be sufficient to take the plea of OWI first. Are you with me?
Yes, Your Honor.
When you think about the case you had in Lake County, back July, the summer of 2019, a year ago, how does it compare to this one? Does it?
Yes,
I mean, this
Your
one
Honor.
was weird because the police are in your driveway when you pull back home.
Yes.
What was the other one like? Did you get pulled over? Was there a car accident? How did the police get involved?
I was actually off the main road onto state property where automobile was not allowed to be, and I was stuck.
Well, did you take the car there to like drive on the trail or something? Or were you doing it on purpose, or did you accidentally drive off the road?
I accidentally did. I didn't have, all I had was front brakes, and it's a corner right there, and it was really
So you
sandy. I
accidentally
slid right
drove off
off.
the road into that area and
Yes,
then got
it's like
stuck.
it's a main road, and it turns
Yep.
right 90 right onto a dirt road, and
Do
then it's
you
a curve.
remember, Mr. Robinson, back on that first case, what your blood alcohol level was then? Or not?
Not right off the top
Don't
of my head, I
remember.
can't.
But you remember going in front of a judge and pleading guilty to it like this right now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And on this case, you're pleading guilty because now when you look back on it, you realize really you never should have driven the car over to your aunt's.
No, Your Honor, I should never ever drove that over there.
Now,
And
are
I
the
have learned
boys,
my valuable lesson. Haven't drove or done anything ever since the second incident occurred.
okay, do the boys you have live with you?
It's a 50-50 custody between me
Sure,
and
they go
mom.
back and forth between the mom and you.
Yes, Your Honor.
And is it fair to say on the date of this arrest, April 10, when you took the car over to your aunt's, you didn't have the boys?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
And they clearly were not in the car with you, but your girlfriend was.
Yes, Your Honor.
Try to picture, and I know it was only a short distance, but try to picture if something happened to you or your girlfriend. Just say something happened and a car accident occurred. I mean, that's pretty hard to deal with, especially if she would have been killed or you would have been killed. How do we explain that to everybody? That you're over the legal limit, but you drove the car anyway and your partner gets killed. I mean, that's kind of, you can't take something like that back, even though you never in a million years would try to do that. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Last week, Friday, today's Wednesday. Last week, Friday, I had 2 different cases that were both fatals. That's a human being that's killed in a car accident who ought never have been killed in a car accident. Both the cases, the person that was killed had nothing to do with anything. They were the victim. But it cost them their life being at that moment in time, at that location. The accidents happened. Each person separately was killed. One was elderly, one was young. And all I'm saying is, neither of them should have happened. Do you get what I mean?
I truly
Okay.
do, Your Honor.
All right, this is what I'm going to do, Mr. Robinson. I'm going to accept your plea of guilty on the OWI first. I want to check, and I am going to check on the blood result. I'll only be talking to you again if the blood results somehow show something different than we think, like you were not intoxicated. If the blood test shows you were intoxicated, I take this plea of guilty. It's accepted now. Do you get that?
I believe I understand, ma'am.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, so
I just want to verify it because you don't
back,
remember it. You don't remember the result. I can't find the report. We've got it somewhere. If the report shows
Yes,
you
Your
were
Honor.
over the legal limit, then this is proper and we're doing the right thing. If the report says, just say the report says you have no alcohol in your system. Well, I'm not going to make you plead guilty to drunk driving then if the blood test shows you weren't. Do you get what I mean?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. Thank
In
you for
trying
explaining
to
that.
do the right thing. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to do the right thing. I believe the blood test report is going to show you had too much in your system. I believe that's what it's going to show, but I want to verify it.
I do too, Your Honor.
Yeah, I want to verify it, and I get that. You had your assessment at North Kent Guidance, so the penalty is as follows. It's a 93-day suspended jail sentence where 2 days credit are given to you when you went to jail. 91 days are suspended. That means you don't do any more jail time now on this case, and I'm not going to order that you do jail time, even though you had that prior case in Lake County. I am asking you, this is a unique case where you're pulling in and, you know, loudness of your car really has nothing to do with driving intoxicated, but we want safety first and foremost. And while you're telling me you get it and you're not going to repeat this, I'm telling you a third time through is a felony. A third time drunk driving is a 5-year felony. Forget about the felony. If you hurt or killed somebody, how do you explain that? That's my point. Do you get what I mean?
I truly do, Your Honor.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. It's a $730 fine. $360 is the fee for probation. $75 crime victims' right fee. You're actually on probation for a year. And I get that the case goes back to April, but I just want to make sure that we don't have any new offenses of any kind. The only way you'd get in trouble on this is if you mess up, get a new case. I'm asking you not to drink at all. I'm asking you not to drink and drive. I'm asking you don't use illegal drugs, not even marijuana. Don't misuse prescription medication. I want to make sure that you are not a defendant again. The Secretary of State is going to take your license away. They'll do that accordingly and in relation to your prior offense out of Lake City or Lake County. So just follow what they tell you to do. We'll set up a payment plan for you. I believe you had a couple $100 down as a bond when you got arrested and posted cash. They'll apply that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yep, they'll apply that to what you owe. $1,440 is the total. I also will tell you that the probation department here at our court will be in contact with you. So they're going to contact you. It's going to be done by phone or Zoom. Is the Cone still a good address?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's how we get a hold of you then. Mr. Robinson, I
Would you like my
appreciate that
phone
you
number?
zoomed in. Go ahead.
Would you like my phone number?
You know what? I don't want you to tell it to me now live because we're live streaming this on YouTube and everybody in the world could hear it. I just want you to be able to tell your probation officer separately. We'll be sending you a letter. That's how you get contacted with us.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thanks for zooming in. I appreciate your courtesy. And I don't mean this to be melodramatic, but you think of your two boys who mean the world to you. And don't ever let this happen again. Period. Okay, that's
Promise.
it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Uh-huh. We can put the Harris case on the record. That's thunder, isn't it? On file D19-04517SM, it's Nautica Harris, Harris. It's a retail fraud misdemeanor with a theft detection device misdemeanor. She was to appear today for a show cause. We have not heard from her by Zoom, by telephone, or by contact with the court. We'll just indicate today that we're going to do a $1,000 cash bench warrant. You can bring her in. Is it Miss Christensen?
Yes.
And it's Jessica, first name?
Yes.
Miss Jessica Christensen, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski. I have you in front of me on a case that you had when you got arrested February 14, Valentine's Day this year, down by Cherry Valley and 108th Street, which is pretty close to the county line, where
Yes.
Kent County turns into another county, I want to say Barry, but that's in Caledonia Township. Does it ring a bell to you?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Christensen, when you got arrested for that operating while intoxicated, you gave us the address of Wayne Street in Grand Rapids. Is
Yes.
that where you are now?
Yes.
So we can get mail to you at that Wayne Street address?
Yes.
Operating while intoxicated, often called drunk driving, sometimes people say DUI, driving under the influence, It's a criminal misdemeanor. It has the possible penalty of up to 93 days in jail, up to $500 fine, and/or up to 360 hours of community service. You can be ordered to go through rehabilitative classes or programs. You can have your vehicle immobilized, pay for the cost of your prosecution, reimburse the government for any emergency response or expense. You actually get 6 points on your license from the Secretary of State. If you go forward and make this decision yourself, Ms. Christensen, there's no trial at all and you don't have an attorney. You're representing yourself, which a lot of people do, and then it's just you and me talking to each other. You have the right to plead guilty or not guilty, have the right to have a trial in front of a judge or jury, have the right to have an attorney. If you go forward today, it's your decision, not your mom, your sister, your friend, not me, not anybody else. It has to be your decision, and you should only plead guilty if you are guilty. If you plead guilty and I accept it, there's no trial and you don't have a lawyer. You give up the rights that are associated with having a trial, like to bring in witnesses to testify about what happened, cross-examine any witnesses about what happened, take the stand yourself and be a witness, say what happened, be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Those are all the rights you give up because we do not have a trial if you plead guilty. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
If there was something you wanted to appeal, something that occurred at the district court that you wanted to have reviewed, you and everyone else are given 3 weeks, 21 days to appeal to the higher court. We're called district court. The higher court is circuit court. Any questions about that, Ms. Christensen?
No.
Then I'm going back in time, and I'm going right to that Caledonia address, Cherry Valley and 108th, February 14, which happens to be Valentine's Day this past year. How do you want to plead to that operating while intoxicated first offense charge?
Guilty.
And are you pleading guilty by your own decision?
Yes.
Has anybody forced or threatened you in any way to plead to this?
No, ma'am.
Do you remember the incident?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you driving?
Yes, ma'am.
Was anybody with you?
No.
Was it a car you're familiar with?
Yes.
Did you have a collision?
I slid off the road.
So your car slid off the road accidentally, kind of like an accident, but you never hit another car.
I did not hit another car, no.
You just went into the ditch, but you didn't mean to.
Yes, ma'am.
Did the police get involved?
Yes.
So somebody called the police. They come to the scene like they do. Often they're not there when it happens. Someone calls it in. This is on Cherry Valley, which is kind of like a highway, but not exactly. You're off in the ditch. Are you physically hurt at all?
No, ma'am.
Is your car damaged in any way?
It was totaled.
The car was totaled. Did it flip?
No.
Just got totaled by how it hit in the ditch.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what kind of car are we talking about, Miss Christensen?
It was a Ford Focus.
Okay, that's a 4-door sedan, correct?
Yes.
When the police came upon you and you said you're the only one in the car, you talked to them, you described what happened, they asked you questions, that kind of stuff?
Yes, ma'am.
They asked you to go through some tests because they thought you might have too much alcohol in your system?
Yep.
Where had you been?
I had just been at home and I was getting ready to go to a friend's house. I made the stupid decision to get in the car behind the wheel. I've never been in trouble and never done anything like that.
Okay, but when you were by yourself at home, what were you drinking?
I just had a tall boy.
And the tall boy is a beer or is that a hard liquor?
A beer.
And when you drank the beer, you're just by yourself, true enough?
Yes.
And you didn't have a meal, correct?
No.
And then when you're going to head to your friend's house, did you have any other alcohol anywhere else?
I had one in the car that busted when I was.
So you took one with you to head over to your friend's?
Yes.
Okay, now really, Miss Christensen, how old are you? Are you 26, 5, 4?
31.
Oh, well, I was guessing young. You look young, so I was just
Thank
guessing.
you.
I didn't look at your date of birth. Someday you'll appreciate that. But okay, 31 is an adult in everybody's book. I mean, let's get real. And you know already, right off the bat, no matter if you haven't had a sip of beer, you can't have it in the car with you. You know that. Open like that, you can't have it in the car.
No, it was closed.
So you hadn't opened it yet?
No, it had busted when I crashed.
Oh, so it broke open when you crashed. So really, other than the tall boy, you took the other one with you to drink at your friend's house, but you hadn't drank it yet.
Right.
And what is your height, just roughly? 5'4", 5'5"?
Yeah.
I mean, you're sitting down, so I
5'4".
don't know. 5'4"? Because our size, how tall we are, how much we weigh, does have an impact on the alcohol that goes into your system and how it's impacting you.
Yes, ma'am.
When you were with the police at that accident, did you take a breathalyzer right then?
Yes.
What was the result?
They didn't give me the results.
They never told you what the breathalyzer result was?
No, ma'am.
Okay. When they did the blood test, they actually took blood out of your arm, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And they said that they found that there was something in your bloodstream that was a type of medication of some sort?
I'm not on any medication, nor had I had any medication in my system.
Nothing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, let me just look at this a second. When they did the breathalyzer with you, I'm just looking here a second. Did you actually go to St. Mary's Hospital?
I think that was the one. Yes. Yes, it was.
Was that just for the blood test?
Yes, ma'am.
Because of they're checking you out for the crash, or just because of the blood test?
The blood test for the alcohol level, because when we got to the jail, they said that the machine wasn't working to take my blood there. Or I mean, for me to do the breathalyzer, so they took me to the hospital.
Yep. They said your PBT was a .085, and that was approximately 11 o'clock. Then they took blood tests from you, more like at 1 in the morning. And at 1 in the morning, it was just under .076.
Okay.
So what time was the accident, would you say, roughly?
It was like 11:30.
Right around 11:30? So that's why with the .085, they're charging you with this offense. Try to imagine, have you thought of it since this incident in February? Like, what if, I don't know, you would have hit a big tree and been killed?
Yes,
And have
I've
you
thought about it.
that stuff?
Yes, ma'am. I've
You
never
talked
been in
to your
trouble with the
mom and
law.
dad? You said
Huh?
that, and I respect that. You talked to your mom and dad?
Yes.
Because just try to picture how scary it would be for them if something happened to you in a car accident and you were killed. I mean, really, you should see how many cases we get where it is a fatal. I was just telling a person a minute ago, last week, Friday, I had 2 fatals, different cases, different people, different accidents. And they're so damn sad. I mean, they really are sad because somebody died.
Yes.
And here you're drinking a beer thinking no big deal, you'll drive over to your friend's house. And okay, I don't know what the weather was like in February, and that might have led to it too. But you drove off the road into the ditch without meaning to. What
Yes,
if you hit
ma'am.
some family head on or something? It could have been so much worse than this. You know what I'm saying, Miss Christensen?
Yes, ma'am.
And I respect the fact that you say you've never done anything like this. You've never been in trouble with the law before. And I don't mean to be funny, but why? Why did it happen this time? You're so much smarter than this.
Rough time.
And you got to really act smarter into the future because you can't let yourself be involved in something like this again. Do you get what I mean?
Yes.
And just look at the financial difficulty of having your car totaled. I mean, that's not easy,
No.
but it's so different if it's a person hurt, not the car. The car we can deal with. But if you really hurt yourself or hurt someone else, I'm telling you, you'd forever regret it. You know what I mean?
Yes, I've learned my lesson.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I'm just hoping so. And I don't sit here and think you're a bad person, Jessica Christensen. I don't. You just made a series of poor decisions that night. And I say, without even knowing you, You're smarter than that. Act that way, then act smarter, okay?
I will, ma'am.
I appreciate it. I will accept your plea of guilty on the OWI first, and the penalty is the time you did in jail already is done. We're not giving you any more jail time. Out of a
Okay.
93-day jail sentence, 90 days are suspended, 3 days credit, 1 year of probation, 12 days of community service. It's very possible that probation be done sooner if
Okay.
you do everything your probation officer asks you to. We have counseling classes, and we ask you not to drink, don't use illegal drugs, don't misuse prescription medication, don't use marijuana, no criminal activity. Like you say, you've never been in trouble before. You want this to be the last time you're ever having to talk to a judge like this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. It's $730 in fines, which is a lot. Probation is $30 a month times 12, which is $360. $75 crime victims' right fee in every one of these cases. $200 goes back to the Michigan State Police for their arrest and processing on this. You get to have credited towards all the monies you owe your bond, which in this case, I think you didn't pay any money to get out, did you?
My mom bonded me out. I think it was $75.
Okay, so if there's any monies to be posted, that gets applied. Your
Okay.
driver's license gets affected by the Secretary of State. It's $1,365 altogether that is owed. You can set up a payment plan. We don't need it all at once, but we do want you to take it seriously and pay it off like you would any other debt.
Okay.
But don't let this poor decision-making affect you in the future. I often say to the people, and I say it all the time, you get a do-over, Ms. Christensen. Literally, you're getting a do-over. You weren't hurt. Yes, your car got totaled, but I'm talking about human. You didn't hurt anyone. You didn't hurt yourself. I mean, psychologically and emotionally, it hurts to have to be arrested. I get that. But I'm talking about your health. Okay, so you get a do-over. Use it wisely. That's what I'm trying to say, okay?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
All right, thanks for listening to me, and thanks for zooming in.
Thank you.
Our
Have a nice
probation
day.
department is going to be in contact you first, mostly by mail, then
Okay.
by telephone and email, okay?
Okay.
Thanks for your courtesy. I appreciate you zooming in.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yep, you can disconnect. Okay, ready?
So the last one's a little confusing. Stephanie,
Yep.
she's already been arraigned, not one of them.
We'll just talk with her and see what goes on.
Her husband, or her co-defendant.
Yep.
husband has not been arraigned. He's-
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Are you Mr. Scheineman?
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to have you unmuted because we can't hear you. You're muted. Is it Schooneman?
Yes, ma'am.
You say it Schooneman. Okay, good. Mr. Schooneman, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski. I have you in front of me, and Attorney Judy Ostrander is also part of the Zoom. You may have already talked to her. She's from the Michigan Indigent Defense Council and is here for a limited scope representation to give you some advice and counsel. This is what's called an arraignment, Mr. Schooneman. An arraignment is the first time that you come before the court to hear what it is you're charged with, what the possible penalties are, what your rights are. They're saying on or about February 28. So this goes back 7 months. A retail fraud in the first degree at the Target store in Cascade Township. Sometimes they call it the Target in Cascade or the Cascade Target. It's on 28th Street. It's a retail fraud first degree, which is a 5-year felony. They claim that while the Target store was open to the public, you did alter, transfer, remove, or replace, conceal, or otherwise misrepresent the price at which the property was offered for sale, with the specific intent not to pay for the property or to pay less than the price at which the property was originally offered for sale, the resulting difference in price being $200 or more, but less than $1,000. They call it a second or subsequent offense because they claim you've had a conviction out of the Wyoming District Court 62A in March of 2015, 5 years ago, for a retail fraud second degree. So that's why they're charging you as this case constituting a retail fraud first. degree. 5 years in prison, possible, and or $10,000 fine, possible, or 3 times the value of the property stolen, whichever is greater. Now, Mr. Schoeneman, do you have any questions for me right now?
No, ma'am.
Is the Blanchard Street address in Wyoming where you live?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you get mail there?
Yes, ma'am.
You do have the right to remain silent, Mr. Schoeneman. You don't have to say anything to anyone. Anything you say orally or in writing can be used against you in court. You have the right to have a lawyer present during any questioning that you'd consent to. And if you could not afford to hire your own lawyer, the court would have to appoint a lawyer for you. Then you pay the expense of a court-appointed attorney. You have the right to have 2 dates set up for your appointments, October 14 and October 21. October 14 is a Wednesday, and October 21 is the following Wednesday. Both your appointments at our court are set at 10:30 in the morning, and you'd be here with your attorney. On the PCC, which is the first appointment, October 14, Wednesday at 10:30, it's going to be done by Zoom, like I'm talking to you now. Whether you're still at the jail or whether you're at home, it would be done by Zoom. That gives you and your attorney a chance to talk to each other and talk to the prosecutor and kind of decide whether you need the preliminary exam, which is scheduled for that following October 21 date, Wednesday the week later at 10:30. The prelim is where the judge gets more involved because we actually take testimony in open court where the prosecutor has to present evidence to show, 1, that a crime was committed, 2, that there exists probable cause to believe you committed the offense. They're talking about the retail fraud first degree. Your spouse is charged as well and is scheduled for the same exact time. I'll talk to her in a minute because it sounds like she's in custody as well. Can you think of any questions that you have for me, Mr. Schoeneman?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Can you tell me on this what the bonds are on that one? Right there. Oh, I see.
10% each.
Okay. So then I was going to say, Mr. Schoeneman, do you work outside the home?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the job?
Home construction, exterior construction.
Like through a company?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a name of it?
Hudson Construction.
When the court services did their evaluation, they said you were unemployed. Were you with Hudson Construction at that time, or do you remember talking to anybody?
No, I've only been working
Okay.
with him for probably 2 months.
Okay. Do you have any kids that live at your house on Blanchard between you and your spouse?
Yes, ma'am. I have 2 sons,
How old are those kids?
6 and 8.
How long have you been in custody?
I've been in custody for 2 nights, ma'am.
And were you taken into custody the same time as your wife?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So Ms. Ostrander, tell me your thoughts that you might want to say. They indicated through the court services that Mr. Schoeneman was discharged from parole September 2 years ago. September 2 years ago. And that he has a series of different cases. Mostly it looks like misdemeanors, but some felonies. Looks like you've done prison time before, right, Mr. Schoeneman?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the longest you've ever served in prison?
3 years, ma'am. A year and a
Wow,
half.
that's a lot.
And split with a year and a half.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Ostrander. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Oh, he is working at a Hudson Construction. He lives with his mother, his wife, and 2 kids. It's been 5 years that he has had his last felony offense. So I would ask for a low 10% bond.
Okay. Does your mom own the home on Blanchard?
Yes, ma'am.
And then is she able to take care of the kids? Like when you guys have been in custody for 2 days, is that who takes care of the kids, the grandma?
Well, I mean, yeah, she is, but it's very hard on her. It's very hard on her income-wise, and you know, the kids are very young, and she's an older woman, and that's
With this
not her
case going back
responsibility.
to February 28, Is this the first you heard about it? Like when you got arrested 2 days ago?
Yes, ma'am.
You never knew you were being charged with this 5-year felony from back in February?
No, ma'am. I've had police contact and everything since then, and I've never had any word about it.
Okay, I appreciate it. And you knew your wife was being charged and that she posted money to get out of jail?
Yes, ma'am.
But you didn't know that you were going to be charged as well? You just thought your wife was charged?
No, ma'am, I did not. The police came to our house and arrested my wife, and they did not arrest me.
Okay. Recently, when you were taken into custody, am I clear that you and your wife were taken into custody together?
Yes, ma'am.
The part that I don't understand, and I'm not trying to cause a problem, is if you knew your wife had been charged with these offenses and she posted money to get out of jail sometime long ago, not 2 days ago, didn't you know that she was still wanted by the court system to deal with those cases, separate and apart from whether you were charged?
Well, yes, ma'am. I knew that she was on probation and that she was getting mail and stuff from a court-appointed attorney, that we were handling it.
Okay.
But other than that, I knew
right.
she was on probation.
Okay. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the bond a 3,000 10% bond. 3,000 10% requires $300. I'm trying to not
Okay.
make it as high as sometimes they are, but it's still $300, and I get that that might be problematic. I'm hoping it's not, so that at least one of you can get out of jail to deal with your kids. But you
Okay.
have to be available for those 2 dates I told you, the 14th and the 21st, and you'll find out who your attorney is. Okay?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So don't miss those appointments. Completely avoid that Target. Don't go there. Don't go to any Target. Don't
Yes,
try
ma'am.
to talk to any of the witnesses. Just talk to your attorney when you find out who it is.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to talk to Stephanie now, if I could, please.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Miss Stephanie Schooneman, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski. I just got done talking to your husband. I'm trying to understand what's going on because you had 2 felony charges out of our court, both for retail fraud first degree, which is the 5-year felony, like I just described to your husband, Kyle. One was exactly with him at that Target in Cascade, 28th Street, February 28th. And then one was January 30th, a month before that, at the Meyer in Plainfield, the Plainfield Meyer, same exact charge, retail fraud first degree. On all the cases, both of those cases, and perhaps it's before they told Kyle he was charged, I don't know. You got arraigned on both of the charges and they scheduled them for a probable cause conference and a preliminary exam. Does that ring a bell at all?
I know that I stopped staying at that residence, his mom's residence. We stopped staying there for quite some time. So I was receiving mail, but I didn't get a chance to open it. I recently just got the mail back because we moved back over there. So I just recently got all the paperwork and everything through the mail that she had been saving.
Okay, but I'm not talking about any mail. I'm not doubting that mail got sent to you and you didn't get it. I'm asking you, when you first came to court on these cases, you posted $200 on each case to get out.
Yeah.
They told you what the dates were when you were in the jail. They told you the dates. You didn't have to get any mail. And you did not appear for those dates. That's what I'm questioning. Why?
Yes, ma'am. I did not appear just because a lot happened in our family, and I didn't remember the dates. They actually, we ended up getting kicked out, and then my kid got sick with COVID, and they had to go to the hospital. Like, there's a lot of things that went on, so like the dates kind of just went past my head. And then when I got back to Linda's house, and I look at my mail and stuff, that's when I realized that I missed it. I knew it should have been recent, but that's when I realized it.
When you found out that you missed it, then what did you do?
Well, I called my lawyer. It said to call my lawyer.
Uh-huh. And did you get
So I
through?
called. No, I called and left a message, and then that's when I
Okay.
wasn't. Yeah, he didn't return anything
Okay.
back to me. Not a phone call. But I don't have my own
Okay.
phone. I use Linda's phone.
Okay, and it looks like, it looks like that attorney is through the Kent County Public Defender's Office.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, they've set up both your cases, the Target and the Meyer.
Okay.
They've set up both of them at the same time with your husband Kyle on the Target case. October
Okay.
14 and October 21. 10:30 in the morning. You'll have a chance to talk to your attorney on both cases because it's the same attorney. And obviously, they're going to be talking to whoever the attorney is for Kyle, too, because the Target
ma'am.
case is the same charge against both of you. And then the separate incident is the month before, January 30th, 2020, at that Plainfield Meyer. So
Yes,
then
ma'am.
Ms. Ostrander is here from the Michigan Indigent Defense Council. She might want to have a few things to say. Go ahead, Ms. Ostrander.
I didn't
Yes, ma'am.
talk to Edmund, because
We're missing you a little bit, Judy. We didn't catch that first part. Try to speak right into your microphone.
I didn't speak with Stephanie because.
Oh, you never got to talk to her?
That, yeah.
Well, these are contempt, that's why.
Right.
Okay. Well, then let me just say, Ms. Schoeneman, that the bonds, I get that you had a lot going on. I get that you had your plate full. Kyle said he didn't even know he was being charged until I spoke to him today or recently when he got arrested on this bench warrant. Your bonds are now 5,000, 10% on each case. That means 500, 500 to get out, 1,000. The bonds that you did post that looked like they were 2,000, 10%, $200 on each case were forfeited. You're going to want to talk with your attorney about anything to do with that. Judge O'Hara is going to be handling the cases on the 14th and the 21st. And you'll have plenty of time to talk to your attorney so you know what's going on. It's possible that Kyle might get out so then he could take care of the kids or help his mother. But you'd have to make bond on both cases. 500 cash, 500 cash. Don't go to any Target. Don't go to any Meyer. Are you with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. We just say not guilty on everything.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. Is it Robert Stebbins?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Stebbins, I'm Judge Sara Smolenski, and it looks like you've been in custody a couple of days on this case that was an OWI from September 28, eastbound I-96 at Whitneyville, Cascade Township, operating with open alcohol in the motor vehicle. Is the address on Bayshore Drive still where you live?
Yes, ma'am.
Whom do you live with?
My mother right now.
And does your mom, is she employed or is she retired?
She's retired.
Okay. The trooper asked us to see you again because you've been in custody. I'm going to order that the bond be changed so you can be released from jail. It'll be a $5,000 PR bond. You don't post any money. You won't have to post any money. I'm releasing you. But I want you to follow these rules. And I'm not being funny. I just want you to follow them, and I tell them to everybody. No
Yes, ma'am.
alcohol. And I say this, no driving unless you have a valid license. I don't know the status of your license, but what we're trying to avoid is anybody getting hurt or killed in a drunk driving case. So I say no driving unless you have a valid license, but absolutely no alcohol, no illegal drugs. I say that to everybody. And no criminal activity. Do you feel like we understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
We still say not guilty on these two charges, and you can look into them. I got no problem with that. But you've got to make sure that you follow through on that. You know what I'm saying? The operating while intoxicated is a misdemeanor. 93 days in jail, up to $500 fine. You've already been arraigned on this, haven't you?
No, ma'am, this is the first I've talked to
Okay,
anybody.
so the charge is drunk driving. Sometimes you hear it OWI or DUI in the area of eastbound 996 in Whitneyville, Cascade Township, that you were under the influence of alcoholic liquor or had an alcohol content of 0.08 grams or more per 210 liters of breath. It's a misdemeanor, Mr. Stebbins. 93 days in jail, anywhere from $100 fine to $500 fine, up to 360 hours of community service. You could be ordered to go through rehabilitative classes, pay for the cost of your prosecution, reimburse the government for any emergency response or expense, and the open intox in a motor vehicle is a misdemeanor, 90 days in jail, up to $100 fine. That's like transporting open alcohol, something that's opened already. It could have a seal on it, but the seal could be broken. That's the charge. Those two offenses. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
You have the right to plead guilty or not guilty, have the right to have a trial in front of a judge or a jury, have the right to have an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, the court can appoint one for you. Then you pay the expense of a court-appointed attorney. You'd have the right to have a trial where you can bring in witnesses, cross-examine witnesses, take the stand yourself, be a witness if you wanted to. If you chose not to, your silence cannot be held against you. And you have the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If there was something, Mr. Stebbins, that you wanted to appeal, you're given 21 days, 3 weeks, after being sentenced to appeal a case to the higher court, which is circuit court. We're district court. Any specific questions you have, Mr. Stebbins?
No, ma'am, not right now.
You'll be released today on the PR bond, but remember the rules I went over. No alcohol, no illegal drugs, no driving unless valid license, no criminal activity. We enter a plea of not guilty, okay?
Okay,
Then you're going to be given notification by the jail as to when your next appointment is. It's often done by Zoom during this COVID time, so be aware of that. They'll give you instructions on how to call in. Okay?
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Stebbins. Appreciate your courtesy.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Ms. Ostrander, you can move to withdraw from those cases you just had.
Yep, I would move so. I would
All
totally-
set then. Do you have anything else that's going on, or are you good?
I'm good.
All right, thanks so much for your help, Ms. Ostrander. We always appreciate it.
Thank you.
Peace.